Wealth is a Choice podcast. Boom.
Let's listen to it. Let's listen to it.
Tom, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. I see you got all your paperwork there.
I do.
This is going to be
I've got
fun.
I've got like 7 pages of stuff.
I love it.
Yeah, we'll see what we get into. First question I want to ask you about is you shared a story when I met you a few weeks ago about somebody you didn't prosecute. And I'd like you to share that story, and I want to know like why that's an important story for you to share.
Yeah, so you're throwing me off a little bit here because usually that's how I end the interviews. I've never kicked one off with it. But yeah, so I was, James, I was a prosecutor by trade in Genesee County. And I tell people, best job I've ever had in my life. And even when I become the state's next governor, I come back on this podcast and you ask me, what's the best job you ever had? It's going to be having been a prosecutor in Genesee County.
Okay.
It was just amazing experience. But, I'm often asked about, my experience and, what were like the big cases that I prosecuted? How long did somebody go to prison for? What's my proudest moment? And we had a lot of those. But actually, my proudest moment as a prosecutor wasn't one where we put somebody in prison, but was actually one where we kept somebody out. And I drew this case, this young man, 17 years old, charged as an adult, city of Flint. On the north end of Flint, he was charged with 3 10-year felonies. And he shot these 3 young men at a bus stop.
Okay.
And I show up to the hearing, and his defense attorney grabs me, and he says, before we begin, I want you to go to the back in the holding cell, and I want you to spend just a few minutes with this young man. And I went back there, didn't know what to expect, and what I thought was going to be just a few short minutes wound up being over an hour. So I walk in, I shut the door. Here's this young kid, probably 5'5", 120 pounds, orange jumpsuit, handcuffed, tied to the ground, and he's got tears just pouring down his face. And he said, sir, every word in that police report is 100% true. I shot these men exactly the way the police report says that I did. He said, but what's not in there is this. The day that I shot them, I did it in self-defense. And he admitted, he said, I was carrying the gun illegally, not old enough to carry it. He said, but I live in one of the most dangerous places in the country, and that's why I carry it. And that particular day, they attacked me. I thought they were going to kill me, and I shot them. And for whatever reason, just in my heart, I believed everything that kid was saying.
Okay.
So I went out, I grabbed my officer in charge and said, listen, I know you're overworked. I know you don't have time, but I need you to take the time this afternoon, go to that bus stop and figure out if there was any video surveillance. He wasn't happy about it. A few hours later, he comes back to my office and he's holding this DVD and he says, you're not going to believe it. This thing was hours from resetting.
Okay.
We put it in and everything that young man said was 100% true.
Okay.
Within an hour, I had him out of that holding cell, and within a couple hours, we had the others arrested for falsifying a police report. And I tell that story on the campaign trail, and I bring it.
The people that he shot arrested?
The people that we had them arrested for falsifying
Okay.
a police report and assaulting him. Yep.
Okay.
And I tell that story because, and I draw it back to my campaign because as I travel the state, and I listen to people. I'm listening to senior citizens that can't pay their property taxes. I'm listening to young people who they don't know if they can get married because they can't afford to purchase a home. I'm talking to single mothers who know that they're sending their kids to failing schools, but they don't know what to do because they can't afford a private school. They can't quit their job and homeschool. People are fed up. And I bring it back to that young man because the day that I walked into that holding cell, he didn't want to tell me how bad those 3 young men were. He didn't want to hear how bad the prosecutor's office was. He didn't want to hear how bad the Flint Police Department was because they didn't get that DVD. What he wanted was for somebody to sit down, listen to him, identify the problem, and go to work fixing it. Mm-hmm. And as I travel the state, that's the people I talk to. They don't want to hear how bad other candidates are. They want somebody to sit down, listen to them, identify the problem, and go to work fixing it. And that's what our campaign's been about ever since the day I announced.
Okay. How long were you a prosecutor?
3 years.
Okay. Is that elected?
So the county prosecutor is elected. I was not the elected prosecutor. I was one of the assistants.
Okay.
Yep.
And how many times did you see cases where somebody was where you had that type of compassion for somebody? I guess. Like how common was that, or is this very rare? This instance.
I wouldn't say it was rare, but it also it wasn't necessarily common either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were, and that was, I often tell folks that, people think that the role of a prosecutor is to secure convictions.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the role of the prosecutor. The role of the prosecutor is to seek justice every day.
Okay.
And there were times that sometimes, justice was a different outcome. I mean, I remember we had this young lady. She had a perfect driving record, never had a traffic ticket. never had a criminal issue, never had any problems. And one night, she went out to dinner with a few friends. I don't know how many drinks she had, but she happened to get pulled over. She was driving a little over the speed limit, and I think she blew like a .08, like right at the legal limit.
Okay.
And this was somebody who, if she had a drunk driving on her record, was actually going to lose her job. She had a couple of young kids. I mean, that was something where we really evaluated the case and said, listen, this is somebody who, they don't have a problem. They're not a menace to society. They made a mistake.
Right.
And we were able to work with them on their case so that she didn't lose her license and she could keep her job. Again, It's about seeking justice when you're a prosecutor.
I grew up in the UP, a real small town, and everybody knows everybody. And that was also a long time ago, I'm 54 years old. And I don't know how much things have changed over the years, but there was this idea that, not the idea, there was, people make mistakes once in a while, or is somebody habitually
correct,
a nasty person.
Yep.
And I don't know if discretion's the right word, but there was that consideration when people were dealt with, when something happened. And I didn't know if that still happens, or if the system doesn't really allow for that aspect.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because I left being a prosecutor in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
What I can tell you is, unfortunately, I do worry that the pendulum has swung. As the prosecutors that I talk to, the pendulum has swung more the other way, with people having, I guess, less trust with law enforcement right now, which shouldn't be the case. I mean, I'm 100% supporter of law enforcement. Does that mean they're perfect every day? No.
Right.
But my heart goes out to them. We have to have them. I support what they do every single day.
Yeah.
But I do feel that there's a bit where the pendulum has swung a little bit the other way, where maybe there's too much deference right now with the defense. But again, the role of a prosecutor every day is to seek justice, and that's what I tried to do every day I walked into that courtroom.
I like that. I like to hear that you say it that way. Yeah. My dad was a state policeman.
Okay,
Every
I didn't
time
know
I
that.
see a state police car, still gets a warm feeling in my heart.
Which post was he?
He was in Manistee. Is
Okay.
where he ended up.
Okay.
Up in UP.
Yeah, most of my state police friends were from the Corona or the Flint post.
Yeah.
And some of the best people I ever worked with, some of the best people I ever knew. And I tell you, I mean, it's unfortunate, not to get too far off here, but it's unfortunate what has happened with the Michigan State Police, because I will tell you, when I was a prosecutor, they were the envy of the nation. It didn't matter which state you went to, everybody knew that our state police were the best in the entire country. And unfortunately, because of failed leadership, that's no longer the case right now.
Oh, in what way?
You've got a colonel right now. There was a recent poll done by the run-of-the-mill troopers, and 98% of them have lost confidence in his ability to do his job. I mean, a lot of it stems from this, the DEI and the implicit bias training that these officers are made to take. A lot of them I talk to, they say, listen, we've got no support right now at the top. I've talked to troopers right now. They are nervous about pulling people over because they're worried, if God forbid the person has a gun, they pull it and they shoot them, they're going to wind up getting charged themselves because there's no support right now from the top. And that's a sad state right now for our state police.
It is. It's a tough job. Some of my best
Yes.
friends are police officers, and it's a tough job. I'm so damn glad they do what they do.
I am too. I've often said the three professions right now that I think are the toughest, and if we don't do something as a society, I don't know how we're going to continue to get good people to do them. Law enforcement, education, and nursing. All three of those are really tough jobs, and it's really tough to get people to go into those professions right now.
Yeah. Well, good. Thanks for doing the work you did, and thanks for having that mentality that you had.
I was going to say, going back, I didn't mean, one thing that when I was a prosecutor, one thing that I did do, most of my time there, I was a drug prosecutor. And I would tell you, you wouldn't believe the message that it sent to those officers when an assistant prosecutor was willing to take time after work and go out on the streets with them till 2:33 a.m. just to watch what they do. And I would often do that. Again, it was an incredible experience. But again, they weren't looking for anything special. Mm-hmm. But the idea that a prosecutor would go out there with them, spend time to learn what they do, it just meant the world to them.
What were the drugs back then? The predominant ones? That was before.
Yeah, it was
before marijuana was legal.
Yeah, it was before marijuana was legal. It was usually crack. That was usually the big one, or heroin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, drugs is. I've never understood it. I've been afraid of doing something that could change me permanently, or I could become addicted to it. It just
I can't
scares
either.
the hell out of me.
One thing,
and I'm not interested in it. You know?
one thing that was very interesting that I learned as a drug prosecutor,
Yeah.
for your viewers. I mean, I never knew this until I started doing it. So when we would prove cases, you'd always have to bring an expert in to prove that the intent of the person's drugs, the drugs they had on them, the intent was to deliver them. Okay. And what we found is almost all of the dealers, none of them actually did drugs themselves. Yeah. So part of the expert testimony was always there were no needle marks, there was no proof that they'd actually done drugs themselves.
Yeah.
And that was one of the ways of proving that they were a dealer. So the dealers themselves, they didn't touch the drugs other than just to deliver them.
Yeah. How much effort is it focused on the dealers versus the users?
Our goal was typically the dealers.
Okay.
Usually if you had a user, our goal, if they got arrested, our goal was to try to get them into some type of drug treatment court or mental health court.
Mm-hmm.
That was, we typically did not want to see drug users go to prison.
Okay.
Again, were there exceptions to the rule? Yes. But our goal was always treatment and getting the dealers off of the streets.
Okay. I feel like sometimes we're talking a little bit about drugs. So how the pot thing, I feel like we all got a little bit duped because I remember when those votes were going around, it was all about medicinal marijuana and it saves kids' lives and everything. I haven't seen a single article about how life-changing it is for kids with seizures since the thing became legal. It all just disappeared.
Yeah, listen, I've told folks, so when I came to the legislature, one of the positions I did morph on was the medicinal marijuana, the medical marijuana.
Yeah.
And when I came in, I didn't think there could be any positive benefit for it.
Yeah.
I saw it, when we were doing again the medical portion of it. I mean, I had a constituent who was in her 80s, and her husband needed the lotions. And she had arthritis in her hands for years, and just by her rubbing it into his back, took the arthritis out of her hands.
Okay.
I had a good friend.
I use a CBD oil all the time.
I had a guy,
every ailment.
I had a dear friend. God bless him. He was almost like a second dad to me. He was my wrestling coach. He passed away about 6 or 7 months ago from cancer. But he was diagnosed with cancer about 8 or 10 years ago. Was given a 6-month death sentence. And they put him on chemo, and this poor guy, he didn't have any weight to lose. And within weeks, the doctor told him, if you don't do something, you're not going to survive the chemo treatments. And he's like, I can't eat. I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what gave him the appetite to eat? So, it does serve some type of benefit on the medical side, but goodness, I wish we wouldn't have legalized it just for recreational use.
What frustrates me is I saw these poor kids in high school. They've got to deal with social media. Pot becomes legal, and then we go through COVID. They had so many things at such a young age that they had to navigate through. And the use of pot in the young people just went through the roof, and the strength of it was insane. I mean, I grew up in the UP. Pot used to be grown by people in the woods. Yeah. Plants, whatever. Sometimes the police would collect it. I remember that my dad called me down to the state police post one time. They had just made a harvest that somebody had come across while they were hunting in the woods. Yeah. And they filled the garage full of these 10-foot pot plants and stuff. But now they get it at a dispensary, and I don't think anybody understands the I don't really get it. Like, I know the alcohol, 80 proof. I don't know what that means. I know what a beer is. But, this is 20 milligrams, this is 100, this is whatever.
Yeah.
And young people are eating this stuff and taking this stuff, and it's way over the top sometimes. And it wasn't, I don't think it was policed. And I don't understand why it wasn't. And it kind of frustrates me. Yeah.
I can tell you this, James. I mean, it is, and I want to be very clear because I don't ever want anything that I've said to be taken out of context by other viewers. Marijuana is a gateway drug. I mean, no one will ever convince me otherwise. And what I will say about it is this. Having been a drug prosecutor for a couple of years, I will never say that every marijuana user will become a heroin user.
Right.
But what I will say is this. 100% of my heroin addicts that we had to prosecute started with marijuana.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not saying there's a one-to-one correlation, but I can
Right.
tell you, as it relates to heroin addicts, that's where they started.
Yeah. It's strong stuff these days.
Yeah.
Too.
Yep.
A young mind, they get one chance at being in high school.
I know.
And it's hard to see.
Well, and it is a tough world right now for these kids. I mean, you mentioned social media.
Yeah.
One of the biggest issues that I've really been pushing on the campaign trail is mental health reform. And I was in Sanilac County just a couple months ago. So let me give you a statistic and then I'll tell you the story. But statistically speaking, 10% of our high schoolers at some point in the last 2 years have tried committing suicide because of a mental health issue. And I was in Sanilac County a few months ago.
10%.
10%. That's what
Like
the statistics.
national of
That's what
Michigan?
I believe that's a Michigan statistic. I'd have to clarify that, but I
Wow.
believe it's a Michigan statistic. But I can tell you, a few months ago, I was in Sanilac County, found out that the weekend before I got there, and Sanilac County's only population, I think, 38,000. 3 kids, 3 high schools, 3 separate incidents committed suicide the weekend before. I mean, this is a crisis, and as you said, these kids, the bullying, the mental or the social media. Now you throw the drugs in it. I mean, it's tough for them right now.
We've got property at a place in Port Sanilac, and there are beautiful people there. Amazing, wonderful people. That, I see all around the state, people need some help.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's areas of the state that feel like they get a little bit neglected or that they don't get represented.
I hear that more and more in rural Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean, you get the further north you get,
Yeah.
the worse it is in terms of feeling like they've been forgotten. But
Yep.
as I travel rural Michigan, they feel like Lansing has completely forgotten them.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, man. I want to ask you more about a lot of the topics that we covered, but I'm going to bring it back to my
All right,
clipboard
let's
here.
do it.
So, in general, and this will help us get into these separate topics, what does it take to run a state? And I'll give you an example of what's in my head
Okay.
with that question. It has to have economic vibrance. We've got to teach our young people. There's education, mobility, how people get to their job, what they do. So the big categories first, and then we'll look at some of these categories.
Okay.
What does it take to run a state?
Well,
What is a state? What needs do you have to look at?
Yeah, so I will say this. So the number one thing that we are looking at on our campaign, okay, and the overarching, I've said to folks, so right now, I mean, I could rattle off statistics that are not in our favor right now. I could do this for over an hour.
Right.
Okay. But the one glaring statistic right now that I look at that I think is it's the worst for the state is the fact that the only state that Michigan is beating for population growth over the last 2 decades is West Virginia.
Okay.
That's it. And that's why I'm running, because frankly, I don't want my kids to leave the greatest state in the entire country because they don't feel there's any opportunity for them here. So I've been very clear, when I'm the state's next governor, if a bill hits my desk,
Okay.
if I believe it's going to help keep our kids here, there's probably 99% certainty that bill's getting signed.
Okay.
If I believe that bill is going to push our kids out of the state, there's probably 99% certainty it's getting vetoed.
Okay.
The toughest ones are going to be the bills that I don't think do either.
Okay.
That's going to be my focus, is keeping our kids here and making Michigan a growth state again. So to answer your question, I mean, certainly the economy and jobs, education, quality of life, and by quality of life, it's cost of living. How do you bring down home costs? How do you bring down energy costs? How do you bring down healthcare costs? But again, quality of life also means addressing, I believe, these mental health concerns for these
Right.
kids. So, it's a wide net, but ultimately what I'm going to look at is, what do we have to do to keep our kids here and make Michigan a growth state again?
Okay. Like that. And one of my last questions is, what metrics do you measure as success as a governor? So keep that in mind, because I can ask you that later on in population growth. I can see why
that will
that
be
would
the
be
biggest one.
I can see
Yep.
why that would be.
Yep.
that.
There are a lot of subcategories, but
Yeah.
that's the big one.
All
Yep.
right. All right. So on commerce, on building jobs, if you look back to Granholm era, she wanted to build a movie foundation.
Yeah.
And Snyder came in, and he thought that didn't have deep enough roots that they would move if they found a better tax break somewhere else. So he kind of scrapped that. He wanted to bring focus on manufacturing, and tourism was very big for Snyder. And then Gretchen Whitmer comes in, and honestly, this is not slight on her. I don't know what she sees as our staple business. Like, and I guess I use that word staple or anchor. Like if you go to a mall mall always has a couple anchor stores and then all these other things. And I don't know what hers is. But do you have one? Do you have a vision for what is a foundation industry for Michigan that we can build off of?
So for me, I think, and again, we have, obviously manufacturing, we're a manufacturing state. That is our largest industry, okay? Agriculture is number 2, okay? All right? One of the big industries right now that I don't believe we talk about enough is financial services. The 2 largest lenders right now, between United Wholesale Mortgage and Rocket Mortgage, those 2 companies, I believe there's over 20,000 citizens across our state that work between those 2 companies. We don't do enough to promote the financial services, in my opinion. But ultimately, what I want to see is us do economic gardening. I don't like the idea that the government wakes up and says, we're going to focus on just one industry, or we're going to give these tax breaks to just one company. What I want to see is Michigan have the absolute best business environment in the entire country, and then every business can compete. Frankly, half of the jobs in this state, they come from small businesses.
Okay.
And I think governors don't focus enough on those 50 and under businesses, if you will. And frankly, those employ more than half the people in the state. Economic gardening is what would grow them. So what do we got to do? Number 1, you look at 9 of the top 10 growth states in the country. 9 of the top 10, they're right-to-work states. Okay. We've got to bring right-to-work back to the state of Michigan.
And will you explain that?
Yeah.
So make sure, I know it changed over the years.
You're
but
okay.
Just so everybody's aware of what you mean by that.
So basically, what right-to-work, if you're a right-to-work state, what that means is you will never be forced to join a union as a condition of employment. So it's an option. There's some jobs, I'll tell you, like when I became a prosecutor, I had no choice. I had to join the union. Okay, there was no choice for me.
Like what does that mean?
It's like if you want the job, you will join the union. If you don't join the union, and they're going to take money out of your payroll. Okay. You got to pay your union dues, and frankly, they can use those union dues to promote issues and candidacies for candidates for people you may not even agree with.
Okay.
So what right to work does, it just simply says you cannot be forced to join a union as a condition of employment. Okay. And what I've often said to folks on the other side of that issue is I believe right to work is good for the union members, because what does it do? It forces the union to get up every single day and sell the benefit to joining the union. If the law says they have to join the union regardless, then why would the union work to actually get them better benefits and do good things for them? So I've actually said this to union members. You want a right to work state because it's going to force your union to work harder for you. So right to work. Second, if you look I'm sorry, go ahead.
You might be absolutely right. But when you get, I don't know if they're fat and happy, but that term fat and happy, you don't want to have to work harder when you already got it in front of you. But you might be absolutely right. They could be very much better off.
Yeah,
if
why
it was a choice?
Why would the union bosses or the union heads, why would they get up and work every single day to provide a benefit to their union members if they know the law says that no matter what they have to join?
Right.
There's no reason for them to work hard for their union.
Right. We all know in reality that's how life works.
But if you make
if all my clients had to be my clients, I wouldn't deliver as good a service as I do when I know that I have to earn their service every day.
So I've always said right to work, it's not just good for the state, but I believe it's good for the unions.
Right.
And frankly, if Michigan was a right to work state, I would love to see union membership grow, because I would love to see these union heads in these unions be so effective and so good for their membership that people want to join. That's how you build a strong middle class.
Yeah. I think unions can get, some people could love them. They can get a bad rap. I think probably most people don't understand them. I've never been in a union, so I can't say I have personal experience with it.
I think one of the biggest issues with the unions is, so I told you when I was a prosecutor, I had to join one. Okay. And the biggest issue, it wasn't so much the pay and the benefits. it was more of these classifications and what you could or couldn't do.
Mhm.
Okay, so I remember we had this issue and we had a flood in the courthouse that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
My office got wet and I had to move down the hall.
Mhm.
Okay, and I come in on a Monday and I just start taking frames, off my wall, and I start taking, I figure out they told me which office I was going to be, and I started walking down. Man, after about 30 minutes that I had somebody come in and they were having a fit. They were like, "You're going to get grieved. You're going to lose your job." And I'm like, "For what?" And they were like, "This is outside of your description."
Yeah, okay.
And I'm like, "I can't pick my radio up,
Yeah.
and I can't take my pictures off the wall and
Yeah.
walk." They were like, "No, we've got to put a work order in, and somebody has to come and do that for you."
Yeah.
Well, how inefficient
Right.
is that? And I just kind of told them, turn a blind eye. I
Yeah.
got to get my office set up, and I got to go to work. So
Yeah.
I didn't listen to them. Thankfully, I
Right.
didn't get grieved, but I
Right.
could have.
Right. Yeah. That's the negative aspect.
Yeah.
I got a buddy who's got a construction company, and it works amazing for him because he can bid a job that might take 50 employees or it might take 100, and he can go to the union and he can get
Yeah.
that labor and get that job done. So,
So-
as a small business, it allows him to do so much.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of the inefficiencies that they can produce.
Okay.
Okay, and I think this is what makes people fed up, and I hope this example that I give is understandable. So, when I left the prosecutor's office, there was a 2-year stretch where I actually worked as an assistant attorney general.
Mhm.
Okay, and I actually did civil defense for the Michigan Department of Corrections. Okay, and the way the law works, if an inmate brings a lawsuit against one of the corrections officers, they are forced by law to actually work through what's called the internal grievance process and try to resolve it without bringing a lawsuit.
Mhm.
And if they don't do that, you can get the case dismissed immediately. Okay, so always the first step when I would get a case was to figure out, did they work through that process? Because why would I do all the work of defending a lawsuit if they didn't? I could get it dismissed immediately.
Mhm.
Okay, so there was a place at Michigan Department of Corrections where they would actually keep the records as to whether or not somebody had tried to resolve this internally.
Okay.
When I would start the case, I was not allowed to email the Department of Corrections and ask them to provide the record. I had to go through my assistant, who had to go through another assistant at the Department of Corrections, who had to send it to the keeper of the records, who had to look and then send it back to the assistant, to send it to my assistant, to send it to me.
Wow.
Now, I could have easily just emailed the person that kept the records and got an
Right.
answer. No.
Right.
Think of how inefficient this was if I picked up a case on a Friday
Yeah.
and I could have it dismissed within hours, but my assistant or the MDOC assistant, they were off sick for the day.
Yeah.
I had to wait till they came back. And there were times where I would spend 2 weeks trying to get an answer
Right.
when ultimately I could have just had it done in an hour and had it dismissed. But because of the civil service rules, we had to go through all these steps for me to get access to records. That's nuts.
It is.
Yeah.
So, what is the history of right to work in Michigan?
So Michigan became a right-to-work state in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually voted on it in lame duck just before I became a legislator for the
Mm-hmm.
first time. And then a couple of years ago, when we had the Democrat trifecta, they repealed it. And the
So
date,
you were not forced to join a union. That's what right to work stands for. And then
yeah. So from 2013 to just up until a couple of years ago,
Okay.
you were not forced to join a union.
Right.
Now you can be forced to join a union. And my numbers might be a little off, but they're going to be close enough.
Okay.
I haven't looked at these in a while, but the day that right to work repeal was signed into law by Governor Whitmer, Michigan, I believe we were 34 out of 50 in unemployment. Now, not good enough, but I think we're now 47th out of 50.
okay.
At that time, that day, we were 0.1% off of the national average. Now we're a full percent off of the national average. So our unemployment has done nothing but gone up since right to work was repealed.
Okay.
And again, 9 of the top 10 growth states.
Yeah.
You look at Texas, you look at Florida, you look at Tennessee. These states are right to work states, and these are where manufacturers, this is where they want to go.
Yeah. Is it embedded in Michigan where it's just tough to get out of that? Oh, I guess we were out of it for a while.
Yeah,
so-
no, I don't. What's interesting is this: for decades, because Michigan has been such a strong union state,
Mhm.
legislators, particularly Republicans, were told if you vote for right to work,
Mhm.
you will lose your next election.
Okay.
There was not one legislator that voted for right to work in 2012 that lost their reelection the next term. And there were
Okay.
actually 2 or 3 legislators that voted for it that were from Macomb County. In Macomb County, and those are the Reagan Democrats. That's a strong union county. None of them lost their reelection. You know,
Okay.
it's about going out there and messaging it. And again, when you can go to union members and say, listen, what I did to vote for right to work was to force your union to work for you, it makes sense.
Okay. Didn't know if I was going to ask you about this, but let's see if this relates and if you got any information on it. But so there's a huge income disparity in our country that's been growing for decades, and we've lost a lot of manufacturing jobs. It used to make up about 33% of our economy back in 1980. Now it makes up less than 10%, and the income disparity in our country has just been growing massively. I don't know what the income disparity in Michigan is relative to the nation. I don't know if you have any of that information.
So I believe we're a little over. I don't want to just throw a statistic out that's compared. We're either $10,000 off of the national average or
Okay.
$10,000 from the top state. I think it's off the national average.
better
But what
way
I
or worse
but what I
way?
in a worse way. What I
Okay.
can tell you is income growth has done nothing. Let's call it decline.
Yep.
Income growth has done nothing but gone down, or we've continued to go further down in the rankings. We
Right.
are now bottom 10 in the country. Last year we were 38 out of 50. We are now bottom 10 for income growth
Right.
in the country. That part that I do know.
Do you think in general everybody is aware of income, gaps? Do you think in general that anger, that frustration in income gap makes people believe that less unions would deteriorate that? Or do you think it's two separate things?
I don't. I mean, the Detroit News just recently wrote an op-ed about this, about how Michigan is becoming. I mean, we essentially are a poor state right now. We're
Right.
bottom 10 for income growth. And your average person across the state, they don't understand it. And I don't know why. I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because. Obviously poverty is going to be much higher in your urban and your rural areas, and
Right.
that's kind of where they stay. They don't spend a lot of time in the suburbs. I don't know what that is, but again, we are bottom 10 for income growth right now. That is a problem.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to stick with this for a minute because we're talking about poverty. And I have seen, so I'm from the UP. I love the UP. It's a huge, vast area.
Yep.
A lot of rural towns. I've seen a mentality from young people in the UP that feel like I'm from this small town and therefore there's not much in store for me in the future. And it becomes a mindset that
Yep.
they believe is them. And it doesn't take long working with some schools and some students over the course of 2 or 3 years where you're pulling in alumni that are telling their story. They're from the same town.
Yeah.
They got the same experiences, even if they graduated 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's the same town. And so they have an opportunity to see alumni that are from all over the place now, and
Yep.
some local. You don't have to leave your town to have a good life. And hearing stories, and then in a short amount of time, the mindset changes from I'm from here, therefore nothing is possible, to I'm from here, therefore I can do anything. So I've seen attitude change quickly, but it takes an effort to do it. I can also see where attitude just continues to believe there's nothing in store for them. So talking about poverty and this mindset, have you had experiences like that, or what do you think we can do to change a mindset in somebody that thinks I don't have a future, that's very productive looking, into one that I'm going to go get it? This is great.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's having leadership every day that's out there with that positive energy, focused on the good of this entire state. I mean, I grew up with something very similar. I grew up in a small town called Montrose in northern Genesee County.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the first kid from my family to go to college.
Okay.
Small town, wound up becoming Speaker of the House. I mean, that would have been unheard of several years ago, but I was able to do it, again, coming from a blue-collared small town. But, when you're talking about these rural areas, particularly northern Michigan, I mean, I can understand why many of these young kids would get down, because you look at what Lansing has done, again, over the last 8 years. I mean, You've got an activist attorney general who's doing everything she can to stop building the Line 5 tunnel. 60% of the people in the Upper Peninsula, 60% of the propane users in the Upper Peninsula depend on the fuel that goes through that line. So she's essentially told them, I want to put you in a position where you can no longer heat your homes.
Mm-hmm.
There was a mine up there. They were looking for a $50 million infrastructure grant to reopen this mine and create, I believe it was going to be 200 really good paying jobs. That was quashed. There's not even one psych bed available right now in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. So I can see why so many of them would be down, because simply Lansing has forgotten them. So that's why we've made a really focused effort on rural Michigan, particularly northern Michigan, when I was up there. So I've had 4 trips to the UP. And again, I think it starts with leadership, that positive energy and showing them that you care.
I saw you up there.
I
think I saw it on some Facebook posts.
We've had 4 trips, but on our last trip, and I learned something new every time I'm traveling the state. The number one issue I kept hearing about, we're forgotten, we're forgotten, we're forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
So I had somebody come up with this idea.
You hear it a few times,
and
that's
they
the
said,
general
you know,
mindset.
why don't you appoint, if you become governor, why don't you appoint an ambassador to the Upper Peninsula?
Mm-hmm.
And not just somebody with a name.
Mm-hmm.
This is somebody who would be on your executive staff. They would be equal to your chief of staff, and they are somebody that would answer directly to you.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, what a great idea. Mm-hmm. And we announced that I will do that. Become the state's next governor. We'll appoint an ambassador. And it was funny. I mean, it went off great. I mean, everywhere we went, people loved it. But I go to this reception, and there happened to be a legislator there from northern Michigan, but he represented like the Alpena area in the lower peninsula.
Okay.
And he comes up to me, he says, hey, I am so glad that you want to do this, ambassador. Man, that's going to be great for my area. And I said, let me stop you there. And he said, what? And I said, did you not read the entire release? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, I put the stipulation that this ambassador has to reside in the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah.
Love my folks from the northern,
Yep.
lower peninsula, but I want the Upper Peninsula to know they are not going to be forgotten. So one of the stipulations that we put on this ambassador is that they've got to be a resident of the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah. So Michigan is unique. First of all, back to like kids are leaving Michigan, where we don't have population growth. It's an amazing freaking state.
Oh,
Like,
it's
there's so much to do
it's the
here.
best.
It's
It
incredible.
is the best. I mean, somebody could legitimately, a family could legitimately, I think, vacation for 3 or 4 weeks in the UP and be busy 14 hours a day and probably still not see it all.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're right. It's absolutely amazing. And I often pick on my bride. So Janelle is from Indiana. She's a proud Hoosier. She moved here, maybe about 20 years ago. And I often poke her when I say this, but there's some truth to it. Going back to my kids, if they were to come to me and they said, Dad, I love Michigan, but I just need more sunshine and warmer weather. I'm going to go to Florida. I'm going to go to Tennessee. I'm going to go to Texas, Arizona. I can rationalize that.
Yep.
What I can't rationalize is the fact that right now, Indiana and Ohio are stealing our kids.
Yeah.
And I often tell people, you ever driven through those two
Yeah, I
states?
know.
Like, no, they don't
I
compare
know.
to Michigan.
Yeah, my son goes to college down in North Carolina right now, and the
Beautiful
worst
state.
worst part about the drive is driving through Ohio.
You
It
got
takes
it.
all freaking day long.
You got it. It does. You can't, here in Michigan, what do they give you?
Yeah.
Like 10 mile an hour grace?
Yeah.
If you can go 10 miles over the speed limit, there
Yeah.
you go over 2, you're getting pulled
I
over.
know.
Especially if you got that Michigan
We
license
we
plate.
celebrate when we get across the Ohio border.
And I think all their speed limits are like 55 miles
Yeah, I
an
know.
hour.
I don't
It's
get it.
awful. Yeah.
All right, so regarding the ambassador, Michigan is it's unique. It's got the UP is definitely unique. Northern lower is definitely unique, and there's a big difference between Alpena and Traverse City, by the way. Totally different needs.
Oh, absolutely.
Middle of Michigan.
Yeah.
Would you say you're from Middle of Michigan? What's Saginaw? Would you consider that the middle of?
Yeah, 75 corridor, so
Yeah.
just north of Flint.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
so right-
obviously
so-
the metropolises have their own needs.
Yeah.
There's such a diversity of needs across our state.
It is.
So
It is.
I love the ambassador idea. But are there ambassadors for different areas too, or is that just the representatives from those areas?
Right
are
now,
sufficient?
yeah, I mean, right now we just came up with,
Yeah.
the one for the Upper Peninsula. And, I got some pushback, mainly from people down here that
Yeah.
they were like, well, isn't that what their representative or their senators for? And I'm like, listen, you take Oakland County.
Yeah.
I don't know how many representatives Oakland County has, but
Right.
it's got to be over 20.
Right.
Okay. Macomb, same thing. Wayne County, same thing. You
Right.
take Detroit, I think they've got 15 or 16 representatives. They can come together.
Yeah.
And they can really get some stuff done because if
Yeah.
you got a 15 or 16 person block,
Yeah.
that means something. Okay. The Upper Peninsula right now, I think they have 3 representatives and they have 1 senator.
Well, they have 2.
So it's very
there's
difficult.
There's one senator that John DeMoose. He's got
Yeah,
a
you
little
got
bit
one-
of the
yep.
corner
Yep.
of the east, and then the whole west is one.
Yeah,
all
you've got.
the way
I think
to like Nobbin
you've got
And then
Markkinen. Yeah,
is there
Bonac.
3?
Yeah, there's 3.
Three House
There's
reps?
3 that actually reside
Yeah.
in the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's tough when you're looking
It's
at
a small
110
amount.
representatives.
Yeah.
It's tough for those 3 to come together.
Oh, it is.
And again, it's not a knock on them. They're doing
Yeah.
a great job, but it's just a numbers game.
Yeah.
I mean, when a governor or a speaker has to get a budget passed, and they need votes, are you going to look at the 14 or 15 from
Right.
Detroit that are sticking together,
Yeah.
or the 3 from the UP? So that's
Right.
why I've said I think that ambassador position would give them such a stronger voice,
Yeah.
because now you have somebody answering directly to the governor.
Yeah, and it is interesting to look at it that way. So the UP is what, about a third of the state, something like that.
I think it's a
Landmass, I don't
third
know.
of the land mass, and
Yeah.
I think somebody wants. I think I most recently heard it's 2.7% of the overall population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but look at the landmass. So, how much area these representatives have to
Yeah.
cover, in the diversity of needs amongst a third of the landmass
Mm-hmm.
of the state. So it'd be like saying from Detroit to Grand Rapids up to Saginaw, you've got 3 House reps and 2 senators that are looking after
Yeah.
that area. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You put it into perspective.
Yep.
It's a lot of freaking work.
Oh, it is.
And to be able to voice that, as you're saying, to be able to voice that equally in what their needs are to the governor is important.
It is, and I think that's what's missing right now so much in the legislature, just overall, is these legislators who they won't take the time to understand the needs of other people's districts. I mean, so for example, in my second term, so right now, as you know, the federal government essentially they wolves are on the endangered species list, and wolf hunting is banned. Okay. But what we were looking to do is actually put a state framework in. So in the event that the federal government delisted the wolf, those in the Upper Peninsula who are having a lot of issues right now. I mean, the farmers, they're eating their cattle. It's an issue.
frustrating
It was
so
going
many
to. It was
people.
going to allow
Yeah.
the state to put in some type of framework to hunt them.
Right.
Okay. And they couldn't get anything done because so many legislators down here in Southeast Michigan were beholden to the Humane Society, and they said, well, these wolves are beautiful, we don't want them to be shot, but yet there was not one legislator down here holding it up that was going to have to deal with them like they do in the Upper
Right.
Peninsula. And it was interesting, a good friend of mine, Harvey Santana, he was a Detroit rep that I served
Yeah.
with, and I remember him laughing. He was going to be a yes vote, and he made the comment to me. He said it in jest, but there was a lot of seriousness to it. He made the comment. He's like, listen, I'm going to be the one Detroiter that's going to vote to give them this right. And he says, and this is how I look at it. He's like, you don't tell me what to do with my pit bulls in Detroit. I'm not going to tell you what to do with wolves in the Upper
Right.
Peninsula. Makes sense.
The Santanas are beautiful
They
people.
they are amazing people. Do you know them?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. They're part of the
Yeah.
Bear Hunting Association.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're wonderful people.
Yeah. So wolves are crazy unique because they are so symbolic and
Yep.
so spiritual for some people, and they're a different kind of reality for other people that have to live with them. And that's just it's a really unique topic. And they are endangered. The endangered part is crazy to me because they are not endangered in the UP.
Yeah.
And what endangered means, I don't think people understand this. What endangered means is that if a wolf is attacking my dog, I am not legally. I would be a felony to hit that wolf, to kick that wolf,
It's
to
crazy.
hit that wolf with
Yeah.
a stick, to in any way endanger that wolf from killing my dog. That is insane.
It's
If the
nuts.
wolf was attacking me or another human, then I could defend myself
Yeah.
or another human. That's insane.
And again, you got farmers up there.
I
They're
should
hitting
be
this to
able
their
to kick
cattle.
a wolf
Yeah.
that's biting my dog and wants to kill my dog.
Mhm.
And legally, I'm not supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah. And
It's insane.
and
It
it's
doesn't
just-
make any sense for them to be on the endangered species list. And it does make sense for the state to manage it the way that they should be managed.
Yeah, and again, it's just these legislators that don't want to take the time again to understand other certain areas of the state. I mean, I can tell you this: when I was speaker, and even in my second term, one of the biggest issues that I worked and attempted to try to get passed was auto insurance reform. And I was very clear at the time. I mean, so Michigan at the time, when I was working on this, we not only had the highest auto insurance rates in the country, but if you could magically at the time knock 20% off the average premium, we would still have the highest auto insurance rates in the country. And most of that was because of how high the premiums were in Detroit. I was talking to Detroiters that were paying $6,000 to $8,000 for auto insurance. It was nuts. They couldn't afford it. That's why you had half of them were driving around uninsured. Okay, and here I was working on an issue that was going to mainly help the city of Detroit, because where I was from in DeWitt, I mean, yeah, our auto insurance rates were high, but they were like $900. I mean, compared to the rest of the state, we were low. We could afford it where I was at. But again, I wanted to take that time and that effort to understand where other parts of the state, where they were struggling, and how it was good for all of us if we could fix this problem for them.
How do you fix it? I can't wait till you do fix it. And
It's something we're gonna. I mean, I think the biggest. I mean, I think a couple things. Number one, we've got to lower the threshold in terms of what we mandate that people buy on their PIP. That's the personal injury protection. You look at Indiana and Ohio; they've got much lower rates than us, and I think both of them. I know at least Indiana, but I believe Ohio as well. They're not no-fault states. So basically, if you're at fault, that's where you pay. But if you're not at fault, I mean, it's right now the way it works in Michigan. Again, we're a no-fault state, and you've just seen these rates get driven up. But I think the big thing is lowering.
No fault means
it doesn't matter if you're at fault or not.
You can get sued.
You can, and you're basically responsible. Your own insurance company is responsible for paying your.
So I got T-boned years ago by a van. It was actually on its way to a rehab place or physical therapy.
Goodness gracious. Okay.
It was full of people that it was taking on its way to this rehab place, and I got T-boned by them. They were late for their appointment. And they were speeding. They're doing like 40, 50 miles an hour in a school zone that was 25 miles an hour. So clearly not, clearly. So anyways, one of the people sued me and got $440,000. And then everybody else sued, and they all got 25 grand, even though none of them were injured, just to pay him off. And I got T-boned. And they were speeding in the school zone. That didn't make any sense. It was a very frustrating experience. The other thing is that lady that sued me, she was in that car to physical therapy because she was in a car accident where she sued and also got a ton of money. Yeah. So it seems to me it's these lawsuit things.
Certainly
anybody can sue. And even in the arbitration, it was very frustrating. They're like, hey, we recognize they were speeding, we recognize school zone and everything, but we're still going to find you liable and award them $440,000. I'm like, why?
Yeah. Well, whereas if you were Indiana, it'd be the complete opposite. But another big one on no fault too is just the medical costs. So right now for hospitals, you're injured in an auto accident, you go to a hospital, they can charge master rates, which is the highest rate. So you have a CAT scan, you have an MRI. If you're injured on the job or your medical insurance company is paying it, they get like a 60 or 70% reduction. So they're going to pay, anywhere from $800 to $1,400 for that MRI or that CAT scan. You're injured in an auto accident, it's going to be $7,000 or $8,000. I mean, I'll tell you from personal experience. So Janelle and I, we were in a car accident during the height of COVID.
Okay.
Rolled our car twice.
Ugh.
Thank God.
I've done that.
Thank God we weren't hurt.
Isn't that a weird experience?
I had a small cut on my hand.
Oh, man.
And she, threw her back out a little bit.
Yeah.
But they wanted us to go to the hospital to ensure we weren't in shock, which I'm like, okay, yeah, definitely we need it.
Did you end up upside down or right side up?
We were upside down. They had to cut me out of the seat. Yeah, I was upside down. Yeah. So anyhow, we go to the hospital, and you may remember during COVID, during the first CARES Act, Trump had signed into law to make certain that the hospitals could stay solvent during COVID.
Right.
I think they gave them like a 30 or 40% increase for what they could charge if it was a COVID patient. Okay. And they did this to ensure that these hospitals could stay solvent. So we go in during the height of COVID, emergency room is full. All these people have their masks on. Okay. Now remember, if their commercial insurance company is paying versus if they were a COVID patient, they were going to get a 30 or 40% upcharge. Okay. We walk in and they asked us why we were there. As soon as I said that we were injured in an auto accident, we went to the front of the line, and guess what they did not do for either one of us?
What?
They didn't give either one of us a COVID test.
Okay.
Because the rates were going to be so much higher for auto insurance.
Okay.
I don't think they even wanted to take the chance of us being COVID positive because
Yeah.
they didn't want the COVID rates. They wanted the ones that were 300-400% higher.
Okay.
That's an issue when it comes
Yeah.
to no fault.
How much can a state do to improve the hospital and the healthcare system versus a federal level? Is the
Yeah,
issue-
I mean, so much of this is federally mandated, if you will, or
Right.
the macro level. Some of the ideas that we have in our plan, one, we need to scrap the certificate of need law that we have in place right now. So for instance, right now, if a new hospital wants to build, or if a hospital or a clinic wants to put an MRI or a CAT scan in, I'll give you a specific example. I used to do work for a medical company that has they created a revolutionary treatment for cancer. They're out in Grand Rapids. Okay, they gave me a ring because they purchased a multi-million-dollar PET scanner. Okay, which detects the cancer.
Okay.
They did not know that they had to go through this certificate of need commission. It's this appointed commission that has to do all these studies and sometimes takes months, if not years, to determine whether or not they can purchase this product.
Okay.
And these guys, they were like, listen, this thing's going to land in our clinic and we're not going to be able to use it. We didn't know. Thankfully, we were able to work through the process and get a change in the law so they could use it. But my
Okay.
point is right now you've got everything goes through this bureaucratic commission, and states that don't go through this, that don't have this CON, they've got much lower healthcare costs.
Yeah.
Telehealth, I think, is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those have proven to lower costs. Why don't we want to have more telehealth across the state? If you've got a senior citizen that just needs to do a checkup with their doctor to talk about their blood pressure medicine,
Mhm.
and they're in the UP,
Mhm.
why force them to get in their car during a snowstorm
Right.
and drive 50 or 60 miles to go and see a doctor if they
Right.
can just get online, log in, talk to their doctor,
Right.
get their prescription?
Yeah. Also, AI is huge,
Yep.
booming. People are going to rely on it. And I was having a discussion with a financial planner. We were down in Texas. She was telling me a story about randomly. She was on a train or something. Somebody was asking her a Social Security question. Should their spouse take it before them, whatever? And then they had a discussion about it. And he said, good, that's what chat said too. And so that, professionals, are people going to use chat to confirm what professionals say or vice versa? But with telehealth, people are going to Google stuff. People are going to AI stuff. And to be able to talk to a professional, either to confirm what you're discovering that scares the shit out of you that you saw online, or not confirm it, show you where that might be flawed.
Yeah.
Why not have that available?
And I'll tell you, just to put in perspective how much cheaper telehealth can be
Okay.
versus in person. So I've mentioned multiple times mental health, big issue for me.
Mhm.
Okay. So studies have shown if we were to put a licensed psychologist into every single school building across the state,
Mhm.
and we don't even have enough, we don't have enough in the state to do that. But if we had enough psychologists to do that,
Mhm.
it would cost the state over $600 million per year.
Okay.
Okay. You could provide telemental health services to every teenager across the state
Mhm.
from 13 to 18 years old for just over $6 million.
Okay.
That's 1%. That is a fraction of the cost by going to telehealth. Now, is telehealth or, telehealth or telemental health, is it going to be the end all be all? No, but it's part of what we need to look at and do if we want to lower costs
Right.
and provide better services.
I agree. Is there a stigma for people to seek advice, mental health advice? Is there a bottleneck or a roadblock to people feeling that that's a good thing or okay to do? Or does
I
that
would
come back and haunt people later on? Do they try to get a gun permit or something like that?
So, I don't know, how do I want to say this? I don't know if society itself, if there's a stigma in the sense that outsiders judge people with a mental health issue, but I will tell you, it is clear people are terrified of the stigma that comes attached with having a mental health issue.
Yeah.
And Florida did a they did a public health campaign. I think it was only $5 or $10 million, and they promoted it mainly in the schools, and it was wildly successful. They had a lot more kids coming forward, talking about it, getting diagnosed, because they worked on ending the stigma. And I've said I believe that's where it starts here in the state. I mean, somebody has a physical problem. God forbid you get cancer, you get Parkinson's, you get ALS. What do? You go to your doctor, you get diagnosed, you start getting treatment, you go to your friends, you go to your family, you go to your place of worship, and you ask for prayer, you ask for help. You're not ashamed. But sadly, right now, if somebody's diagnosed with a mental health issue, they don't do that. They tense up. They don't let people know. They're not seeking help. They're not seeking guidance. And that's a big deal. So as part of our mental health plan, one of the big things that I want to do is bring more public health campaigns as it relates to mental health so we can end the stigma that comes attached. Because nobody should ever be afraid to get the treatment that they need.
I agree. I think one of the most beautiful things people can do is get to know themselves better.
Absolutely.
And it's a lifelong project. And I mean, I remember how old was I? It was in 2010 that I was diagnosed with ADHD, ADD. And I had never thought of that, never realized that, didn't really know what it was.
So not as a kid. I mean, that was,
And I bought this book called The Edison Gene. So I went to the Barnes & Noble when you could still go in a bookstore. Went to the ADHD section, and the Edison Gene kind of called me, I guess. And that guy celebrated it and talked about the positives of it, and then said, these are things that are more difficult for you. And so that was life-changing for me, absolutely life-changing for me to understand my brain better and what I naturally am extremely good at and some things that I naturally struggle with.
Absolutely.
So the discovery of self, I think, is unbelievably valuable in our lives. And sometimes mental health is just that discovery of self, figuring out why we operate where we are, or what happened. We have so many things that we do because of what we did when we were 3 or 4 or 5 years old that we don't remember the event. But it's still, that's our behavior, that we react to certain things today because of that.
And a quarter of our population in the state right now suffers from some type of mental health issue. Half are not getting treatment. And you look at black males, it's exponentially higher. I mean, again, we need to end the stigma that's attached, and we need to make certain people are getting the help and treatment that they need.
I don't know, if somebody said, hey, do you I'm just thinking out loud, but if somebody said, hey, do you want to talk to this person about your mental health? Or somebody over here said, hey, do you want to talk to this person about discovering yourself? I'd be like, I don't know. Oh, that sounds awesome. If you just change the way that maybe we look at it, because it shouldn't have a stigma of a negative thing. This should be an extremely positive endeavor and experience to go get to know yourself better.
Absolutely.
All right, I want to ask you about mobility. Mobility is a big deal for me.
Okay.
So we are
now. Why, if I don't mind, if you don't mind me asking, how come it's such a big deal for you?
Because I bike.
Okay, got it.
I got into biking years ago. Triathlon stuff, biking stuff. So there's a complete streets. Are you familiar with that?
I don't know that I am.
All right. So
I might be, but not know the term.
So it was a policy that was put in place across the whole entire nation years ago. And this is, I find odd, that under Governor Snyder, the Michigan Complete Streets, I don't know what it was, committee? I don't know what they went by, dissolved itself. And they said that we believe that MDOT and road commissions and everybody can now, the groundwork is there, and now these institutions can self-manage this process moving forward. And the reason I say it surprised me that under Governor Snyder that it got dismantled is because he was such a biking trail state tourism governor. So that's why it kind of surprised me. But anyways, Complete Street says that all road construction needs to take into account all legal users of the road. And Michigan is an automotive state. And if you look at like Michigan roads, like a lot, obviously the decisions around how to build a road should center around a vehicle, because that's how most people get from point A to point B. But other people get left behind, bikers, pedestrians, walkers, and then road construction sometimes happens that makes it more dangerous for everybody involved, because it removes a shoulder with a mumble strip and it puts the biker in the lane instead
Yeah.
of this shoulder that they had available to them before. So rather than the road construction accommodating a shoulder that's a foot or two wider to also accommodate the rumble strip, they just put in the rumble strip and they take the shoulder away.
Okay.
So anyways, I've got this event in the UP. It's a biking event. We go around the entire UP. We start and stop in my hometown of Manistee.
Okay.
And we ride our bikes 1,200 miles around the UP.
What's that called?
Tour de UP.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the same distance as Detroit to Disney World. The UP is massive. Like, it's a third of the state.
So how long does it take to go around?
10 days. We do it over 10 days. So it's 120
Really?
miles a day.
How many hours a day does it usually take?
I mean, it depends on the speed of the biker and how much time they take at water stops, but anywhere from 7 to 8 or 9 hours, depending on
Interesting.
how
Okay.
long they,
Okay.
how fast they want to pedal,
Yeah.
I guess.
That's cool.
So that got me intimately involved in biking road safety.
Okay.
I started it back in 2018 because the UP is unbelievably safe place to ride your bike. And I was doing triathlons. I'd get up there and I'd ride my bike. And I went
And this
see
is
it.
because of the roads or just because of the lack of traffic?
Because
if
you
will?
can get off the main roads.
Okay.
So this
Makes
1,200
sense.
miles, we are not on highways. We're not on roads that anybody ever heard of.
Okay.
And there's one day between Escanaba and Iron Mountain, we go 100 miles without seeing a gas station or a party store. Or
Are they
anything
all
else.
paved?
Mostly. There's
Okay.
36 miles of gravel
Okay.
in the entire 1,200 miles.
Oh, okay.
So I got to use gravel once in a while to make a rural connection.
Okay.
So anyways, that got me involved in understanding bike safety, non-motorized safety, road construction, things that happen that make it more dangerous for everybody. If there's not an understanding and an effort at the top, at the governor level, then bikes, common sense, non-motorized things just don't happen.
Okay.
So there's a big backdrop. Your thoughts on mobility, like every city, I think every city supervisor should look at how do I get the residents in my town to
Right.
be able to ride their bike, walk, or drive their car to where they want to go. And I think every town should have that emphasis, but I think also as a state should look at how do I get all legal users of the road to be able to get from A to B safely.
So when you asked the question about complete streets, I mean, I told you I had
Yeah.
not heard of it. Okay. And this is the first that this question's come up in months. I appreciate you asking it. So I'll just give you full disclosure. I may give you an answer right now that a few days from now or a few weeks from now, I might have a completely different answer just because I've had a chance to look more into it. Okay.
Right.
What I would say is this overall reaching, when it comes to fixing our roads, fixing our streets, I mean, let's face it, it's these local roads, it's these local streets that are struggling the most. It's not these expressways. I mean, you go to Lansing, I think we've got some of the worst streets in the Lansing area in the entire state, probably some of the worst in the country.
Right.
Okay. So, and I say this as a caution. What I wouldn't want to do, because I want to look more into this, what I wouldn't want to do is put certain regulations or stipulations on these local communities. I mean, I would love to see them be more accessible for people
Right.
to walk, ride their bikes. But what I wouldn't want to do is put something on them where they're saying, hey, again, I'm making up numbers here. Lansing mayor calls and says, hey, listen, I was going to pave 20 miles of streets in my city, but now I can only do 12 because you're putting all these mandates on me. And now I've got 8 miles of streets that are pretty much becoming gravel, and I can't fix them because of some of the regulations and the mandates you've put on us at a state level.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest caution is I wouldn't want to do anything that's going to cause these local governments to say, hey, now I've got to pave less streets because of what you're forcing us to do. That would be my caution.
Yeah, I think the main crux of the policy is that that road construction doesn't make legal users of the road more dangerous to use. So not necessarily that
Okay.
it creates new construction obstacles, but that if you're going to have road construction, you need to accommodate all legal users of the road,
Okay.
which makes a
Yeah.
ton of sense.
Yeah, like I said, makes sense,
Yeah.
but that would, again, that would be my first question without saying, before I say, oh yeah, that sounds great, I would just want to make certain that I wasn't doing something that was going to put locals in a place where they said, okay, well, we can do this, but we're only going to be able to do half the projects now because this is going to be such an added cost.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine I'm trying to think in my head, like in a city like or a township, like where that might be the case. There's 1,200 bike accidents in Lower Michigan a year.
Okay.
There's 18 in the UP. There's
Crazy.
no deaths in the UP. There's been a handful over the last decade and a half.
We had one locally where I was from, probably about
Downstate,
7-8
there's-
years ago. Yeah.
Downstate, there's about 36 to 40 a
Yeah.
year on average. The death is going up, and what we don't measure is like this chronic, horrible injury accident.
Mm-hmm.
We know there's an accident, and we know there's a death, and we don't know all the data in
Yeah.
between as to how deeply people were injured.
What I'd be interested in knowing, and I don't know if we've had it into effect in a long enough time to really get data, but I would be interested to see if those deaths and those accidents have gone down at all with the texting legislation that was passed a couple of years ago. Again, I don't have any. I'm just asking. That's
Deaths
an
are
open-ended,
going up.
It's an open-ended question.
Accidents are going down.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I've read every single police report of a bike accident in the UP over the last like 10 or 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've read hundreds of them in Lower Michigan. And that's where you get the information. So you get data, and then you look at the police report, and that describes to you how this
Yeah.
accident happened. And my bike safety effort is to create scenarios where the accident doesn't happen. And some of that is on the biker,
Okay.
better lights,
Yeah.
flashing red light in the back, how well we ride with vehicles,
Yeah.
what our
sure.
communication is, what our presence is,
Yep.
sometimes what our kindness is, or our understanding of what we're doing on the road, vehicles' understanding of what bikers are doing there,
Yeah.
3-foot rule, which we have, abiding by that. So some of it is just in behaviors and how we ride. Some of it is the actual construction. Like the worst thing I've seen is where on a rural road with a 1.5 foot shoulder, a rumble strip goes right down the middle of it.
Oh, then you can't ride it.
You can't
Yeah.
ride it. And then the bikers ride on the lane.
Yeah.
And then that is more
Creates an issue.
dangerous for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yep.
And I don't know the answer. Without knowing the numbers, I often say I would rather this rural road. If you could have done 20 miles
Yeah.
repaved, but now you can only do 15 because you had to make the shoulder 1.5 foot wider, you do 15,
Right.
rather than put everybody at more risk.
Interesting. Okay.
So right now, like non-motorized vehicles get attention if there's enough room in the budget. Not that the budget always will accommodate the needs of all legal users
Okay.
of the road.
And that was scrapped under Snyder, you said.
Well,
the commission?
the group, what is it? The administration that
Yeah.
oversaw complete streets. They absolved themselves, or
Okay.
is that the right word? Where they
Yeah.
yeah. And you can look it up. There's a letter that they wrote to Snyder. You can see it all. I can give you all the stuff.
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see who was. I bet I knew one or two people on that commission, or that committee.
As you move along, please keep in mind this all legal users of the road, because e-bikes are here to stay.
Yeah.
And so, like, I fish a lot.
Okay.
I grew up on Manistee River, catching steelhead
Okay.
and salmon all the time. And when you go on a river, and I want to cross the river, and the current's going this way, I cross the river moving with the current.
Yep.
Because you try to go that way, you're going to
It's
fall.
tough, yep.
And you're going to get dumped way down the river. And to me, the current is toward more mobility with more options.
Okay.
Because batteries are here.
Yeah.
And there's more people e-biking. There's more people outside trying to get from point A to point B. And they have assisted ways to do it now.
Okay.
So the current's going toward more things besides vehicles on the road. And if it's not recognized how all these people
Right.
work with each other, then
Okay.
our accident rate and our death rate's going to go in a negative way. The death rate already is. I don't know why the disconnect, but
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, you gave me something more to look at.
yeah,
I appreciate it.
yeah. It's a big deal. Michigan, that's why I do the Tour de Youp. That's why I do that ride in the UP.
When is that?
When?
Yeah.
It's this year. It's Friday, July 24th we start
Okay.
in Manistee, and then we end on August 2nd back in Manistee.
Interesting. Okay.
Do you ever ride bikes?
I do, but I mean,
Come ride a day.
no
if
more
you
than
want.
no
Come
more
ride.
than a couple hours at a time.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we bought bikes about 10 years ago. We don't get out as much, as we want to with the kids.
If you want to come up and join us, you're welcome to. Even
Okay.
if you just want to see everybody,
For a few hours?
talk to people.
That might be fun.
We've raised money for kids with cancer in the
Okay.
UP and their families over the last handful of years. I think we've raised over $400,000 or something like that.
How many participate?
We've got about 50 a day. So let's say about half of them maybe are doing all 10 days,
Okay.
and about half of them are coming in to do a day or 2 days or
Okay.
3 days.
Interesting.
It's the longest bike event loop in the nation,
Okay.
and in the world as far as we can tell. There are longer ones that go point to point, like coast to coast.
Yeah.
But it is the longest bike event loop in the entire nation.
You know a guy by the name of Tim Ward?
Ward?
Tim Ward.
Not a fan.
Because he did something very similar. I wonder if he was with you guys. It was on his bucket list. I don't think he does it every year.
I
He
think
wanted
I'd
to do
know
it
his
once.
name if he did it.
Probably about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you get all 10 done, you earn the right to wear plaid.
Okay.
We award you the plaid jersey.
Okay.
And then you're on the Hall of Plaid.
All right.
And you can see we got people from all over the nation. We even have some people from Germany on that thing.
Okay.
But yeah,
I'll take a look at it.
it's pretty neat.
For sure.
It is. It showcases the best of humanity
Yeah.
because UP is made up of some wonderful people.
Oh, for sure.
Bikers are actually pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Very kind. And the families with the kids with cancer are there, and they are so thankful for what we're doing for them, and they're amazing people.
Okay.
And we inspire them, which I never thought would happen. They inspire us, these families.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it would be. But these kids sometimes are dealing with cancer for multiple years.
Okay.
And they look forward to this event to see all of us coming around wearing our jerseys, representing them, raising money for them.
Okay.
It's really amazing.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
It's one of these things that just captures the best of humanity.
Okay. I love it.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the election. About 45% of the people that the primary gets about 45% of the general election showing up, somewhere around there.
It's probably going to be less.
How do we get more people to vote? And the winner of this governor race is going to need 1.5 million, 1.6 million, based on like votes, based on how many people have showed up.
So-
but we get like 4.5, 5 million people to vote, and we got like 12 million people in our state. I don't know how many of them are over
Yeah.
18, but there's this big gap with
Yeah.
people that don't vote in the primary one. It's
So
so,
the primary-
vital to vote, and a lot of people show up for it.
Yeah. So I often tell people, give or take 1 million people vote in the Republican primary. And it might be slightly higher this time around just because it seems like the Democratic primary is not quite as competitive, but 1 million people are what's going to vote. And right now we've got likely 5 candidates that are going to make the ballot on the Republican side. So I've been very clear, like 250 to 300,000 votes could decide the primary.
Isn't
And
that
if
crazy?
that
That's not a
person
big
wins the
number.
governor's office in
Yeah.
the general, they essentially could have won with 250, 300,000
That's
votes in a state of 10
nuts.
million people. That's why, for us, that's why I've often said, that's why we're working so hard creating that path to find that 250 to 300,000 votes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does it happen? Where do you get them?
It's
How do
just
you get 'em?
it's
How do you get the
finding your
people?
I mean, obviously, the best way to do it is just through financing in raising money.
Okay.
You can run an ad for 2 weeks and make 4 million impressions, and you could work for 50 years and not hit that many. So I mean,
Right.
obviously the money, but
How does the money work? How much can somebody give to a candidate? An organization give to a candidate?
Yep.
How does that work?
so a candidate themselves, if they want to self-fund, they can put whatever they want into it. They
Okay.
can spend whatever they have, whatever they want. Okay. An individual contribution, one person can give a candidate $8,325.
Okay.
That's the limit for one. But
And you can give that to as many people as you want?
You can give it to as many people as you want. Yep.
Okay.
But I'll also be clear too. I mean, there's always ways. I tell folks there's always ways to get more money to candidates. So, for instance, let's say you've got a wealthy farmer, okay? They can write a personal check to a candidate for $8,325.
Okay.
If they're part of Farm Bureau, their Farm Bureau PAC can give $83,250. So that person could always give to their Farm Bureau PAC, and if the Farm Bureau PAC chooses, they could give to the candidate of their choice. So,
that Farm Bureau is limited to 83,000.
83,000,
or they could do that for multiple people.
They are limited to $83,250 per candidate, so they could do it for multiple people.
Got it.
Yep. But $8,325 is the individual limit that somebody can give to a candidate.
And can a corporation give to a candidate? Is it a nonprofit that gives a candidate?
A C Corp cannot give directly to a candidate in Michigan. An LLC can. But, and this is where you really get technical, it has to go into one of the owners of the LLC's name, and there has to be a letter, a company that essentially says this money is coming out of their
So that's
pay.
part of the $8,000.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so it's not above and beyond that number.
Nope, it's not above and beyond.
So a nonprofit can, all of them can, or
No,
some of them can?
I don't believe a nonprofit would be able to give
What is Farm
directly
Bureau?
directly
Is that
to
a
get
nonprofit?
to. They've got a PAC. They've got an
Okay.
individual PAC. Now, again, we're getting really into the weeds of
I want to get a
campaign-
little bit
of,
into the
of
weeds,
campaign
just
finance
so
law.
people understand it.
So typically, there is a lot of corporate money involved in campaigns.
Okay.
Okay. Where the corporate money becomes involved is it's not when they're giving directly to the candidate, but basically what the Supreme Court has ruled is that corporations have free speech rights just like individuals.
Okay.
So what corporations can do is, instead of giving directly to the candidate, they can actually run ads. So when you see these ads that say, call Tom Leonard and tell him he's doing a great job as Speaker of the House,
Okay.
or call Tom Leonard and tell him this, okay? That's usually the corporate money, and they can do issue advocacy. So the corporation cannot give directly to the candidate, but what the corporation can do is they can form an entity, and they can promote the candidate in other ways.
Okay.
Yep.
So people raise money through their campaign
Yep.
directly, and then sometimes there's other entities that are also supporting a candidate that raise awareness through advertisements and things like that.
Correct. And that's why, so when you hear some of these races are going to be $50 to $100 million, it's not because of the direct contributions. It's because of these outside entities that are involved doing the issue advocacy.
Okay.
Yep.
And what do people want to get out of it by those that give a lot of money?
I mean, I look at it, the individuals that give, I mean, a lot of times it's a personal relationship, and they believe in somebody. I mean, you wouldn't believe the number. I will tell you this, for my campaign, it's not, generally speaking, it's not the max out contributions, the $8,325 contributions that are the most humbling, because generally speaking, if somebody gives you that kind of money, they can afford it.
Right.
The humbling contributions are the people that give you $100 to $500.
Yeah.
And you know that they took a date night off.
Right.
Or they chose not to take a weekend away. I mean,
Right.
those are the ones that are humbling. And those are people they believe in you. They believe in you as the person. I would say, most of the outside interests, they're trying to get people elected that are going to be basically, helpful or see the same view as their industry. Okay. So, for instance, I'm on the Michigan Chamber of Commerce board. Okay. I'm not on their PAC board. I don't make decisions on where money goes. But, I can tell you the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, they've been involved for years. They want to elect candidates that they believe are going to be friendly to business regulations and businesses across the state. I mentioned Farm Bureau. They're going to want to promote and support candidates that are going to be friendly to agriculture. And you take on the left side of things. I mean, probably the strongest, in my opinion, probably the strongest special interest group right now in Lansing is the Michigan Education Association. And they are going to promote candidates that they believe are going to favor the teachers unions. That's what they do. So that's what a lot of these outside entities do, is they support candidates they believe are going to be helpful to their cause.
Yeah. It's amazing how much money is raised to get in any office.
It's
crazy.
and it just goes up by the cycle.
Incredible.
Yeah, somebody told me, John Engler's former campaign manager and first chief of staff was my chief of staff when I was speaker.
Okay.
He ran Engler's first campaign for governor.
Okay.
And he told me their budget for that entire campaign cycle when Engler first got elected, I think this was 1990,
Okay.
was $1 million.
Okay.
Right now, $1 million barely pays your staff.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, a primary, you got to be looking anywhere from 3 to 8 or 9 million.
Yeah.
And then general, you're talking 50, 60 million.
Should this thing ever have a cap on it, or is it just going to go?
I don't, you know,
endless?
I just don't know. I mean,
insane.
it is, but it's
Even if it had a cap, there'd
Yeah.
be the outside corporations then doing their thing.
Yeah,
You
I
can't
mean,
really control it.
what I have found is, I mean, what's very interesting is you didn't see campaign expenditures getting out of control until the McCain-Feingold federal laws that tried putting caps and tried putting limits and tried putting regulations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as people often say, I've heard this, you know, campaign contributions are like water.
Okay.
You pour it, it's going to figure out how to get to where it's got to go.
Okay, yeah.
And you put more regulations,
use it, yeah.
you put more regulations
Yeah.
in effect, and what happens is you have less transparency.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got right now. You've got these outside entities because they don't have to disclose who they are.
Okay.
We didn't have that issue and that problem until the Fed stepped in and tried regulating all this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what else I got here. You're doing great, thank you. What would Michigan's brand be? Would it have a brand? Do you have a thought like that? Like if somebody thinks about Michigan and you're the governor, like what would Michigan's brand be?
You know, I mean, listen, I'm not a branding expert. I don't know how you would word this.
Okay.
But I believe we've got to figure out a way to make people understand that Michigan, I mean, truly is the most beautiful state in the entire country. Now,
Okay.
I will tell you that selfishly, I mean, as governor, I would want to do that because I'd want to see tourism come into the state.
Right.
Okay. Selfishly, though, I don't know if a lot of citizens will want that because you start promoting how beautiful this state is, you might get you might have people moving into some of these areas, driving up. I mean, we were in the Leelanau Peninsula.
Yeah.
And we talked to the sheriff up there, and he was saying, I think it was during COVID, I think it was Good Morning America, they did like a 30-minute segment on how beautiful that was.
Right.
And he said costs of property and homes have gone up 5 or 6 times because people realize.
know.
But I
That's
think
menacing and
but
picture
people just need to understand just how beautiful this state
Yeah.
is. And frankly, I think we've got to do a better job promoting Michigan to Michiganders. You wouldn't believe the number of people that I talk to down here that have never been to the Upper Peninsula.
Yep.
They have no idea how pretty it is up there. And you ask the question, you know, why in the world would you want to go to another state when you haven't seen everything that's here
Yeah.
to see? You know, Detroit has a lot going for it right now.
It really does.
Detroit is a
It's
cool
pretty
city.
damn
There's a
good.
lot to do in Detroit. Ann Arbor
We went
is
down
a
to
cool town.
We went down to the Lions game earlier, I guess last year, and we were some people that we stayed at a hotel to go down there. We thought we'll stay at the hotel the night before. We'll have a good time. Go to the game the next day, and some people that we talked to at the hotel went to the Lions game, a Pistons game, and a Wings game all over the weekend.
Yeah, I went to Monster Jam twice with my son this weekend.
Oh wow!
It was fun. We had a blast.
I haven't done that one
Yeah.
yet.
We had a blast.
Yeah. All right, I agree. It's a beautiful place. So last year, 74 bills passed the legislature compared to about 383 on average over the last decade. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, or does that represent anything to you at all, or does that mean anything?
To me, I mean, frankly, to me, what matters is quality of the bills that you're passing, whether or not they're addressing issues. Okay. So, I mean, listen, I'd rather see a legislature. I mean, I will tell you this right now. If I was governor and somebody gave me an option, we're only going to pass 5 laws, but we're going to make Michigan a right-to-work state. We're going to eliminate the income tax. We're going to address third-grade reading scores. We're finally going to do something for our infrastructure, and we're going to solve mental health versus 300 bills that don't do a whole lot. I'd rather take the 5.
Right.
So, you know, I'm not going to knock the legislature for only passing 74. To me, it's all about the quality. Are you attacking serious problems for our state? I mean, and that's what I always wanted to do when I was in the legislature. I mean, we did teacher pension reform, and I can't tell you how much time and effort I put into that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was something we needed to do. We got it across the finish line. I didn't even get credit for it, which I wasn't looking for credit for it. But in the amount of time that I worked on that, I could have probably worked on 36 bells and whistles type bills and been the one legislator that had the most public acts passed, that term. But again, for me, it's about quality and solving big problems. That's what I want to see the legislature do. I mean, you take last week. I made a Facebook video about this the other day. There was I believe it was a compact that was put in place a couple of years ago that had a sunset on it. And we knew the sunset was coming. I think the sunset is coming next week. Okay. And basically we have, I think it's 3,500 to 4,000 doctors right now, out-of-state doctors, that because of this compact, they were actually able to practice here without a Michigan license. We were recognizing licenses from other states. The legislature knew for months that this was an issue. They finally resolved it last week. And the reason it took months to resolve was because they were fighting over which chamber was going to get the public act.
Okay.
Frankly, who cares?
Right.
When you've got a doctor shortage in your state and you've got to solve this problem, why in the world would we spend 8 or 10 months fighting over who's going to get the public act?
Right.
Michigan needs a governor that's willing to walk in and, again, not literally but figuratively, knock heads together and say, knock it off. I don't care who gets the public act. Get it to my desk in the next 24 hours. We got to fix this and we got to move on, go to the next problem.
Yeah. That's a tough one to overcome.
It just requires the right leadership in doing it.
Yeah. But it is a constant battle of two parties that want credit for the good.
It is.
And I get it. I mean, each party wants to be in power and doesn't want the other one to be in power. I mean, that's the way it works.
But, that's what the elections are for.
Yeah.
When it comes to getting stuff done for our state, again, there's going to be partisanship. I get it. But some of these issues like that one, it wasn't a partisan issue.
Okay.
This wasn't Republicans voting one way and Democrats voting the other. I think, the bills passed almost unanimously. The problem was one chamber introduced a bill, sent it to the other chamber.
Okay.
The other chamber introduced a bill, sent it to the other chamber, and they were at a standoff because they were fighting over which chamber was going to get credit.
Yeah, okay.
Who cares? You go down the street and you talk to somebody that doesn't have a doctor.
Right.
They don't care whose name's on the bill.
Yeah.
They just want
They
their
don't even
doctor to be
know.
here.
Yeah. They just know it happened.
Yes.
Yeah. And you've been around long enough to know, working in government, that a lot of Republicans and Democrats get along extremely well.
They do. I will tell you, I don't think, yes, there's a lot of bickering, there's a lot of fighting, but I don't think the media focuses enough on when they are getting along, if you will. I remember when I think it was my second, maybe my term as speaker, I really called the media out on it because when I came in as a freshman, something I wanted to address was the preliminary exam process. And that is the first step in the criminal justice process. And for 20 years, they had tried to resolve that in Lansing.
Mm-hmm.
They never could. And when I came in, I wanted to address it, and I was told, not going to happen, don't try it. I didn't take no for an answer. I found out the only reason nothing ever got done was because no legislator was willing to sit down with the Prosecuting Attorneys Association and the District Court Judges Association and have them talk about the issue. They both wanted to go in different directions.
Mm-hmm.
I made them sit down for 3 days and said, we're coming up with a compromise. Guess what? They emerged with a compromise. It was a different plan than the direction I wanted to go, but it was probably better.
Mm-hmm.
We not only got it done, I think there was only one no vote in the House, and I think it passed the Senate unanimously. Okay. But so I was talking to the I was talking to the media about this, and not one of them wrote a story about us solving this big problem that took over 20 years to fix. Why?
Okay.
Why? Because when we passed it, there was no fighting.
Yeah.
If when we had taken it to the floor, it had been Republicans versus Democrats, and Democrats were fighting and telling us how awful we were and how evil we were, it would have been front page story.
Yeah.
But because we weren't fighting,
it
was no story.
That is interesting.
Right.
Yeah. I've had, in my lifetime, 3 governors that I've had some work with, Granholm, Snyder, and Whitmer. And in my experience, you can see a difference in accessibility among these 3 people. Granholm, actually, I think I got a picture in here somewhere still, but we passed you sitting by it? Yeah.
Is it over there?
We passed the Michigan Advisor 529 plan.
Okay.
And so there was just the MESP and
what year was that?
Whenever she was governor, I don't know. I was a lot younger in that picture. But she was fun. She was good to work with. In my experience, I had some good experiences. Snyder was an open door. That guy would show up at an event. You'd shake his hand, talk to him, say, "I'm thinking about something with this biking.
Yeah.
I got this thing in the UP or hunting or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd like you to talk to so-and-so here. Can you help him get his number or her number? Write it down, number.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to tell him you're calling. Make sure you give him a call. Tell him we talked. You call the office, you get somebody. Right now, this administration chooses to run it differently, where it's nearly impossible to get a hold of anybody in the administration. So I guess each have different reasons for doing what they do. What kind of governor would you be? And I might have framed it already that I think one is more productive than the other.
Yeah, that's okay.
Because people run a government the way that they think is most effective. What's your approach to?
Yeah, I mean it's easiest for me to comment on Snyder because he's the one that I had to work with for 2 years when I was speaker. I mean, we met weekly, okay, and he and I wound up becoming pretty darn good friends.
Okay.
But we drove each other insane.
Okay.
He was much more moderate than I am.
Okay.
I'm pretty conservative. Again, he was much more moderate. And sometimes we butted heads on some issues, but we always made it work. We always worked through it. But what I've often told folks about Snyder is this. I didn't always agree with where he wanted to take the state, or I don't want to say that. I didn't always agree with maybe an issue he wanted to tackle or how he wanted to tackle it.
Okay.
But I knew every week when we had our leadership meeting, I was going to walk in and he was going to have something he wanted to accomplish. Right. There was going to be something on the table that we could talk about and we could negotiate about. And I always knew he wanted direction. Okay. I feel like that's been lacking over the past several years.
Right.
We just really haven't had, and my campaign's not about attacking other candidates, but I'm just being honest about the situation.
Yep.
I mentioned just a few minutes ago when I mentioned this physician shortage.
Right.
And having to get this bill passed, the governor was nowhere to be found. Why wasn't she in town focused on this? Okay. Snyder, he was, again, I didn't always like the direction, but we always knew there was going to be direction.
Right.
Okay. And that would be me. And I've often told folks, so you've got, I think it's 5 people running in the Republican primary. You have an independent and you've got 2 Democrats.
Yep.
Okay. And I have zero doubt that all 8 candidates want the job. If they didn't want the job, they wouldn't be doing this. Okay. But what I've said to people is I believe the one thing that separates me from all the other candidates is, and I've done this, my shameless plug for this, James, if you will, but our path forward. I put this together. This is my vision for where I want to take the state. I'm the only candidate that's done this. That's put something like this. And what I've said is, I believe what really separates me is the one thing I want more than having the job is to do the job. And there is nothing that excites me more than the idea of sitting in the Capitol at 2:30 a.m. after an 18-hour day and sitting with the House and Senate leadership and saying, where are we going to get our last vote to get 3rd grade reading reform across the finish line? How are we going to get that last vote to get property tax reform across the finish line? How are we going to get that last vote to make certain that we finally resolve this mental health crisis? That's what I think separates me, and that's the type of governor I'm going to be that's going to wake up every single day wanting to do the job. And when I was speaker, I was like that with my staff. It would drive them crazy because I'd have something really big I'd want to accomplish. And we would take sometimes weeks, sometimes months, putting it together. We'd get it across the finish line. Sometimes late at night, I'd come down to the office. They were happy. They were celebrating. They were giddy. And I'd walk in, and instead of celebrating, I'd say, okay, where are we at with this now? Because I wanted to go on to the next thing to get it done. That's the type of governor I'm going to be. Every single day I'm going to have an agenda of issues that I want to accomplish for our state.
So can people call the governor's office when you're governor and talk to a human being?
100%. In fact, told you, we've got our platform here. We've got an entire section dedicated to accountability. Okay. And our plan calls for the governor immediately bringing every single state worker back to the office and actually setting their phone such that on the 4th ring, if it rings 4 times, there's not an answer, it goes directly to the department director's cell phone.
Okay.
That's how you hold government accountable, and that's how you make certain that they're responsive to you. I actually got that idea from Bernie Moreno, who's the new senator from Ohio.
Okay.
He was very successful, owned several car dealerships. he had that rule with his car dealerships. And after the fourth ring, the call will go directly to his cell phone. He didn't get many calls because that worker knew they had to be accountable. We're going to do the same thing.
I like it.
Yeah.
A big frustration with people is that it's an elitist kind of system, and you don't get to talk to people that are in charge, and you leave messages.
Yeah.
You don't have any representation. And it's true sometimes and not true a lot of times. I know our House reps and our senators around the entire state, my experience, unbelievably accessible, and want to talk to their constituents and help them out. And but that is a frustration that a lot of people have.
But the problem is many of them are calling the governor's office and they're not getting calls back.
Well, I think the
That's a
governor's
problem.
office should have
Yeah.
that as well. I don't think it should stop at the House and the Senate, but
For sure.
that's good to hear. I like that.
James, I gotta step. It's 11:20.
Okay.
I don't know if people are on deadline.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, I got one more question for you.
All right, the last one's always the most difficult one.
No, it's going to be two questions.
Okay.
But you got to leave me time for my last question.
Okay.
Is there anything that you wanted to say that I didn't ask you about?
No, I
And
would
that's
just
not my
listen.
last question.
Yeah, no. Anybody watching, I would tell them go to our website, Tom for Michigan. So that's TomForMichigan.com. Check it out. And again, if they go to the website, the top link has this. It's our path forward. We've got the 3rd edition right now. We've been updating it probably every 2 months. And again, I've
noticed you've updated it, by the way.
Yeah,
and I noticed that means you're talking to people and listening to people. And I've been impressed that it's been updated.
100%. And that's what I tell folks. If you read through this, I mean, I've got some people, I've never met anybody that agrees with 100% of what's in here. Some it's 80, some 90.
Yeah.
In fact, I've had some that are like, man, I only agree with about 10% of what's in there, but I tell you what, I know you want to do the job.
Yeah.
And that's what, if you read through this, you will see you're dealing with somebody that has a plan, has identified problems, and bringing real solutions to the table. I don't like being the person that's just out there talking about how bad things are if I'm not going to bring a solution to the table.
Yeah.
That's what this is about.
All right, thanks. And I'd recommend people check it out. And
if they check it out, I'll tell you this. This is
Yeah.
my shameless plug. I mean,
Okay.
if they check it out, we've mentioned how you win these elections. I mean, finances, we've got to raise money. If they look at it and they say, hey, this is the type of person I want to be my governor, I need them to go online. I need them to contribute. We've got to have money to run this race. We've got to do it.
For everybody watching this, the primaries are one of the most important aspects of our
100%.
ability to vote for who we want to represent us. And not enough people participate in the primary. And if there's somebody that you like, you got to participate in the primary.
100%.
Yeah. My last question. This podcast is called
Wealth is a choice. Boom.
And to me, wealth means abundance. It means a lot of things. In my financial planning firm, we're talking about money a lot, but that's not what this podcast is just about. It's about health. It's about athleticism. It's about spirituality. It's about community. It's about family. Whatever wealth means to you. My question that I ask everybody at the end of the podcast is, do you think that wealth is a choice?
I do.
Can you give me an example?
I do. This last weekend, I spent the weekend with my boy.
Mm-hmm.
He's my best friend. He's my buddy.
Okay.
And I can tell you it was the best weekend I've had in months. I can't tell you how heartwarming it was for my heart, for the soul, mentally.
Yeah.
We got a night in a hotel. I think it was $200.
Yeah.
We got nosebleed seats to Monster Jam, one night. And then I think I paid up a little bit. They were only $70 a piece.
Yeah.
I think the entire weekend was probably $400 or $500.
Yeah.
Was it cheap to some people? No, but we didn't break the bank.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I could have gone to the Super Bowl. I could have gone to Hawaii. You could have, given me $25,000.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been as happy as I was this weekend.
Yeah.
That's a choice. I took time from the campaign trail, from work, spend time with my boy. It was something I needed. That was a choice, and to me, that's wealth.
I love that, man. Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks for the time today. I'm honored that you took the time.
Oh, thank
to have
you. I
this
appreciate it, James.
conversation.
Thank you.
I could talk to you again for a couple more
Hey,
hours.
I appreciate it.
Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Thanks,
hey,
Tom.
thank you.